How Moses' life still reflects on today's society. Moses was a Hebrew born to Jochebed and Amram, both from the tribe of Levi. That was when the children of Israel lived in Egypt as slaves. He was the youngest of 3 children, with a sister named Miriam and a brother called Aaron. Now Pharaoh was becoming restless and very afraid of the growing numbers of the children born to the Israelites. So he ordered that all the baby boys be killed. But Moses' mother managed to hide him for 3 months. But then the time came when she knew she could no longer hide him. So she took a small basket made of papyrus and covered it in pitch and tar, inside and out, to make it watertight. And then she placed him among the bulrushes on the River Nile. She asked Miriam to keep watch over him. When the Pharaoh's daughter found him, she took pity upon him. So Miriam approached her and asked her, would she like a nursemaid for him? She went and fetched his mother. Miriam must have felt a lot of pressure to look after her younger brother Aaron, whilst her mother worked at the palace taking care of Moses. At first, her mother was returning each night with him, but when he got to about 2 to 4 years of age, his mother had to give him fully over to the Pharaoh, who adopted him, and she was to bring him up as his own. Miriam watched as her mother grew and became a different woman, now more quieter and reserved. Miriam would often spy her crying when she thought she was alone. We today still see lots of mothers giving up their children in the hope for a better life for them. We see boatloads of children arriving with other people, seeking asylum, or as refugees on the shores around the globe. Moses now had been adopted. He had all the typical royal training of where he would have been schooled and learnt to read and write, and would have met with the people of Syria, Palestine, as these people held very high ministry posts in Egypt. Moses, during his younger years, would have learnt that he was adopted and that he developed an identity with his own people, the Hebrew. So as he grew older, he refused to be known as the son of the Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God and enjoy the pleasures of sin and of the flesh. Moses would have found out during his school days that he was Hebrew by birth. So I expect that knowing his people were being treated as slaves made him feel he should suffer alongside them instead of living the life of luxury at the palace. Moses didn't like to see his people enslaved. We still see today where people are living in a new country and are learning to live in a new culture, but still maintain their own culture as well, sometimes in secret for fear of their lives. We have, over the last few weeks, seen a lot about slavery on the news and in the newspapers and over the internet, and all the debates and thoughts that surround this. So when Moses saw an Egyptian taskmaster beating up a Hebrew, he set about and killed that Egyptian. When what he had done became known, Moses had to flee and settled among the Midianites living on the Sinai Peninsula, when he married a priest's daughter called Zipporah. Moses lived there for 40 years as a shepherd. It is thought he lived quite a nomadic life. He was a very humble man and who enjoyed helping others. One day, Moses moved his flock to the far side of the mountain and came to the mountain of Horeb, known as the mountain of God, where Moses saw this bush on fire, but it wasn't being consumed. So as he approaches it, a voice calls out, "Moses, Moses." Moses replies, "Here I am." The voice of God then tells him not to come any closer, but to take off his sandals, as he is standing on holy ground. God then tells him he is his father and that of his ancestors. Moses hides his face. He's scared to look at God. God then tells him to go back to Egypt, to the Pharaoh, and bring his people, the Israelites, back to the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. Moses is astounded. How is he going to do this? He asks God. But God tells him in no uncertain terms, I am who I am. And you tell the Israelites, I am, has sent me to you. Moses, of course, was a man who went on to argue a bit with God. He wanted proof, and God told him to throw his staff on the floor, where it became a stake. God said to him, pick it up by the tail, and it instantly became a staff again. Now go, I will be with you, and teach you just what to say. But Moses argued some more, saying, send someone else instead of me. God was angry with Moses now, and told him, all those who wanted you dead are now dead themselves. Take your staff in your hand and meet with your brother Aaron. He will speak to the peoples for you. Now here we see ourselves again. How many times have we got our lives just right? How we want to live it. And then something comes along and upsets the balance. We might have to move house or change our job. We are reluctant to do so, and maybe we moan to everyone around about us. And even ask God, why now? Why at all? Can't you send others instead of us? So Moses trusted in God and took his family back into Egypt, where his brother Aaron was waiting for him. Can you imagine Aaron's surprise when he sees Moses walking towards him? It must have been like watching an episode of Long Lost Family, as the last time they were together was 40 years ago. But together they call the people, where Moses tells them that God is going to deliver them out of Egypt. Lots of estranged family members often find out about each other, or have been searching for a lost brother or sister, sometimes a parent, and are reunited sometimes through an internet search in today's society. Moses and Aaron then go to see the Pharaoh and tell him God said to let the people go so that they may have a feast to him in the wilderness. Pharaoh argues about who is this God? Why should he obey him? And even as he doesn't know him. So then why should he let the people go? Isn't that a bit like us when we're sharing our faith with others, hoping that they will find God too? Aaron is angry, so throws down his rod, and before the Pharaoh's eyes, it becomes a snake. Pharaoh doesn't take this sight lightly, so he sends for his wise men, sorcerers, magicians, the lot, whereby they throw down their rods and they all become snakes. But Aaron's was the most powerful of all and swallowed all up the others. Aaron picked it up by the tail and it became a rod again. We all look for something we can see and trust in, and in a solid confirmation of the truth. Moses then warned that the river would turn to blood if he still refused to let Israel go. Aaron struck out at the river with his rod, and it turned to blood. Everything in it died, and it smelt foul. It was like this for 7 days. This was to show that God was much more powerful than the Egyptian pagan gods. This was the first of the plagues, and more were to follow, all against the Egyptian gods. The second was a plague of frogs. During this plague, the Pharaoh said he would let the people go. So God destroyed all the frogs, but then the Pharaoh changed his mind, so sent God more plagues of lice, flies, deadly diseases, painful boils, each time the Pharaoh refused to let the people go. Then giant hail rained down on Egypt and killed the people and animals in the fields. And Pharaoh said, enough is enough, I will let the people go. But again, as soon as the hail stopped, he changed his mind and refused to let them go again. So more plagues followed, locusts, darkness. The next plague was to be the death of all firstborns. But Moses told the Israelites to eat a feast of lamb, to consume all of it. Spread its blood on the doors and posts of your households. Have your staff in your hand and be ready to leave. For that night the angel of the Lord will see the blood and pass over your house, and you will be safe from death. Well, we might not have lived through all these plagues, but we are living through this pandemic. And to keep ourselves and our households free of it, We have been washing down our door handles and letterboxes to keep everyone safe and well, and hopefully keep the virus out. But unfortunately, we have lost people to this virus, and we have all cried. But all the firstborns of the Egyptians died that night, including the Pharaoh's own firstborn. There was weeping and crying and moaning all day, as someone in every Egyptian household died. But not one of God's people had died. Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron and told them, "Go and serve the Lord. Take all the people of Israel and the flocks and herds with you." They were free to go. God had made a covenant with his people. This was the very first Passover feast. Moses led the people out of Egypt and across the Red Sea with the help of God and his staff. He waved it at the sea and it parted long enough for the people to go through to the other side. But the waters came back together, killing the Egyptian army, which had been directed by Pharaoh, as again he had changed his mind about setting the people free. The people did nothing but moan and groan at Moses, but he told them, "God will help you," and they based themselves at Mount Sinai, where God called Moses up to the mountain. Moses went up to the mountain, and it was here that the 10 Commandments were given to him. These were the laws that the Israelite people were to follow and be governed by. Moses came down from the mountain to find the Israelites worshipping other idols. Moses was angry. He threw down the 10 Commandments, and that smashed into pieces. Today, people are waiting for the shops and pubs to reopen. We have seen people who can't wait and have been flouting the rules, gathering on beaches and such other public places, making those in the National Health Service angry as they have worked so hard to keep everyone safe. Later on, Moses chisels the 10 Commandments out of stone, and they were placed in the Ark of the Covenant. Moses and the Israelites continued to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. Moses died in the sight of the Promised Land on Mount Nebo, the land of Moab, and is buried in the valley there. But to this day, his burial place has not been found. What a story! What a life! But it is not that far away from the lifestyles we live today. After all, we moaned every time the Prime Minister told us that we would have to remain in lockdown for a while longer yet. Or maybe we accepted that, but moaned about everyone else that seemed to be out and about and carrying on as normal. But it seems now we are coming out of lockdown and we are all looking forward to our promised life again. But just like the Israelites waited 40 years, we have to wait a bit longer too. So give thanks, stay strong and keep your faith alive. Amen.